Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of How I Top the CPALE. So, I'm at a very awaited topic today, and I'll be finally going over study tips. But first, before I touch the more intellectual side of it all, I wanted to take a bit of time at the start of this video to go over the mental aspect of it, because I think it's only when you become a full-time reviewee for the board exam and when you're really about to take it that you realize and firsthand experience that the board exam, as much as it is a physical and intellectual battle, it's really a mental one. And if you're someone who is aiming to top or is aiming to exceed expectations far beyond anything that you've ever done before, you'll find that mindset could be what makes or breaks you, and especially in those hours that you're taking the board exam. So this is why I think it's really crucial, and this is what I wanted to highlight first. So I want to go over two things. First would be consistency. Now, if you're a full-time reviewee, I honestly say you need discipline, because I'm a firm believer in that saying that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I think that it's not enough to be talented alone. It's really the discipline, the perseverance, and the hard work that you put in. And I remember I mentioned this in one tip I shared over TikTok, how everyone has an equal chance and everyone is on equal footing when you come to the board exam. And that is a saying I always repeated to myself, partly to also maintain a modest mindset, but at the same time to also give myself motivation and courage, like, hey, I can do this just like everybody else. But we also need to ingest a bit of realism into that and realize that if you put in 50% and you're expecting to get 100% back, that's not going to work. So I think that it really needs to be coupled with actions. It's not just dreaming, praying, and manifesting and doing just that and not putting in the work. So I think these two things need to come together, and that's why I think reviewees, if you especially want to achieve something that's beyond the passing rate, you really have to put in the discipline. But if you're a working reviewee or someone who has other responsibilities to handle, to be honest, I think that consistency can still show itself for you. It may not look the same as full-time reviewees, but I think the most optimal solution I have and that I would advise is if you could put in a bit of work each day. So just how much free time you have, whether it be 1 hour or 2 hours, just to kind of make a bit of progress each day, or to have that mindset with you that you're still kind of like studying, and so that it's not lost on you. But if you're someone who is really, really loaded, and let's say you get home and you're just like, I want to sleep, I'm tired, I do not have any energy for anything else, especially for accountancy, then I say to you that weekends probably, I presume, would be the times when you can maximize more and you can focus and zero in more on your review. So I say really take the time during those days you're freer to make the most out of it. Review centers now, they also offer a lot of diverse schedules, one of which is the weekends. So I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of reviewees, and I have friends also who have taken the weekend schedules, and they're able to cover in just those 2 days the exact same coverage, topics, and time that we cover over 5 days in the weekday schedule. So that's an option, that's something also that I think would maybe be a bit more ideal for working reviewees who still want to enroll in review centers. So don't lose hope, because there's a lot of things that you can still do within your time, and maybe it would be a bit more taxing on you. Maybe you would also feel a bit more worried because you're not spending as much time as everyone else on the regular, but it's really not impossible. And I think that there are a lot of people who have shared testimonies online that I've also read who have been able to get through it with these kinds of strategies and with this kind of discipline that they instilled in themselves despite the circumstances and the conditions. So if you're a working reviewee who happens to be watching this, if you've got other tips to share to those, because I think these really are the people whose stories inspire me the most personally. I find a lot of strength and a lot of inspiration from these people who surmount the odds despite, being in unconventional places. So if anyone would like to also share some insight or some wisdom down below, then feel free to, because we're here just trying to help everyone achieve their dreams. Secondly, I just wanted to share 3 quick mental health tips that I remember I kept repeating to myself during my review. So if this works for you, then take it, or if you've got other mantras that help you, then continue on as you do. So what I told myself before was 1, set a goal on what you want to achieve for your board exam and always think you have a fair chance of achieving it. Be realistic and couple that with concrete actions and not just empty promises. Secondly, I think that you should be conservative and non-complacent, but also not underconfident. Though other people were really encouraging me and going like, oh, for sure you'd pass, oh, for sure you'd top, or I always knew you had it in you. I genuinely did not feel that way inside, and I thought that in the most critical moments, I would crack under the pressure and I wouldn't be able to do the things that I planned to do. And along the way, I learned that that was reality. There were really things I regretted, but true enough, when I took the board exam, I kind of trusted the work I put in, and then I let go and I let God, and the rest is history. And thirdly, this saying that was always repeated to us in high school, it's this phrase that goes, adversity is the catalyst of growth and progress. So I would always be like, every moment I struggle, that's actually the best possible place I can be in, because those are moments of weakness where the Lord can work in the most. So take setbacks as the fuel for growth, fuel for drive, fuel for passion, and prove them wrong, prove the odds wrong. That was the kind of mindset that kept me going. And now finally, to the intellectual side of things, I will be doing separate short videos per subject. And I think somebody asked if I could share what my breakdowns were, what my scores were per subject. So I'll just be going over like the rankings of which subject I did the best in and which was my least highest in those videos, as well as the specific reviewers and materials that I used then. But in this video, I will be tackling more general study tips, so the kind of learning I did, what my study styles were, and some study methods. So first and foremost, I'm really a digital learner. That's what I always describe myself as whenever somebody asks. I am not manual pen and paper. You will never see me holding a notebook. You will never see me holding a ball pen. Only a pencil when it comes to exams, but other than that, my table is clean except for my laptop. Ever since before, it's what I learned was efficient for me. I have a that bit of OCness when it comes to things, so I preferred laptops because they were more efficient for me and they were more effective. I could find things easier, I could organize things easier, and because I feel like if I wrote down notes or if I had resorted to pen and paper, I would take forever because I'd want them to look nice, I'd want them to look neat and pretty, and if they weren't, then I wouldn't be motivated to study. And I would make notes there, so these were like the backbone of my whole review. I would make digital notes, and I started them during my integrated review course in undergrad. So it was kind of like when I entered review season, I had a compilation of notes that were like first view of the topics. And then when I went to the review season, I was able to clean and fine-tune them more. And because the coverage is so long, RFBT alone was such a heavy file, I would condense them and I would pick out the things that felt the most important to me. Because I think a lot of people make quick notes leading up to the days of the exam, and they kind of plot their schedules like, oh, this day right before the subject, this is what I'll review, especially those heavier on memorization. So I made a kind of version of that, but they weren't even that short per se. They were still kind of lengthy. But the point is, I boiled it down to those things that I always usually forgot, that I always usually got wrong, and the stuff that I just felt like I needed to glance right before I took the exam. And within these digital notes, some other strategies I used were, first, I used mnemonics. So I would label it every time I used a mnemonic so that when I Control F and found it in my notes, it would be easier. Secondly, I did a lot of summary tables, and these were more on to help me understand the concepts, especially I think when it came to RFBT, like similarities and differences between some topics like Masada law, recto law. Those were what I would do so that I would be able to sort them easier. And then I would also do a lot of color coding. I'm a very visual learner, so my memory is kind of like I remember where which part of my notes that topic was in. I remember the colors I associate them, and I remember the way that I wrote them. So that's why I always made my own notes, and I would take like inspiration, I think, from some other files I went through, and of course from the review center handouts. But all in all, they were basically cleaned and trimmed down to a language and a version that I could understand. I would make like lists of some of the shorter memory things I needed to go over. So I had a list of like Latin phrases, I had a list of RA numbers, a list of effective dates and transition periods, especially I think with regards to tax, because there's a lot of updates. I also had tables for tax rates, very important. Then I would also list down pertinent formulas, especially for maths. So those were some of the helpful summary and quick notes kind of strategies that I used in my digital notes. Another thing, I remember I also used legends. So in my notes, I would have like just a few symbols pertaining to different things. So I remember if it was a formula, I kind of placed this S symbol so that if I were to find all the formulas in the sheet later on, I could just Command F that symbol and find it. So I like simple, organized things like that. Whereas if I felt like I wrote it in a pen and in a notebook, then to find it, I'd really have to look through the pages if I forgot where it is. But that was what worked for me. The drawback to having digital notes and to using devices for the whole review season is it really puts a strain on your eyes. So the best I could do was go through with it and then give myself study breaks in between so that I could also rest my eyes, get enough sleep per day so that I could recover. And whenever I felt like I was a bit more strained, I would stop. I would immediately stop. Now for study style, I think probably a lot of people study in groups. Me, I study alone. I can study in a group, but I think I just prefer to study alone because I like to usually be in a comfortable environment, so I don't always go out to crowded places nor to noisy places. And at the same time, there's the added thing with studying in groups wherein you could be distracted sometimes. Not all. I actually thought that study groups was something I wished I could have done a bit more during undergrad, and I reflected on it a lot during my review season because when you see other people around you do different things and you kind of question the stuff you're doing, when you're in a group you really get exchange of ideas. I experienced that a lot in undergrad, and when I got to official review season I kind of focused on reviewing by myself. But one of the lessons I also learned from this, to be honest, is that it really depends on what works for you. I realized that putting yourself in new environments and doing things you normally wouldn't is kind of, yes, risky when you have that little time left until the board exam. So I decided to stick to what was comfortable for me, what worked for me all this time. And I think it was just a bit of like a point to myself that I could smile after because I stuck to the things that I did and I didn't get swayed by my thoughts, and it all turned out all right. So bottom line is you do what's best for you. Now for study method, I'll be touching on a bit more review center-ish things. So I remember I went through the handouts of my review center, not for all subjects, but I'd say I did it the most for FAR and FAR, and then to a certain extent tax, especially with recent developments, coupled with other resources. Then for audit as well, on the harder topics that were more theoretical for me. And then with maths, I answered more of the problems within our handouts, but I didn't finish all. And for RFBT, I honestly did not rely on the handouts entirely. I used the PowerPoints during our lectures, and I also looked at other notes and other resources. I was a face-to-face reviewee online for the first month, but to be honest, one thing I didn't really do was watch pre-recorded videos. As for review books, this doesn't really make me happy to say it, but to be honest, I didn't ever do cover to cover of review books. I thought that was something I would be doing in my review season, and a lot of other previous passers and top-notchers were telling us, reviews of what kind of books they did and which ones were good to do a review. But for me, honestly, I didn't use much. I focused on the review center handouts, some IRRs, and a few codals when it came to RFBT, though I didn't get to go through all of them, just more on the high-yield topics. And I took a look at the definitions of terms for different laws because they said it could be like a trivial thing to pop up. And then mostly really on my digital notes that I compiled and that were a whole compilation of all the lectures I went through, as well as the tidbits of info that I would come across from exams and elsewhere that I felt like were important to remember and that I would get wrong if I didn't note down. So essentially, that was how I studied. If there's other certain things that you want to follow up on from the things I've said, then just let me know, so maybe I can expound a bit more. And I'll follow this with a more in-depth run-through per subject, and especially with the topics that I took more time to attend to. And I'll also probably do a short video just on review centers, some of the things I learned. So I'll just share what I can, and probably those are the next videos to look forward to coming up. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much for your patience, because indeed life is busy. I hope that you continue to stay tuned for other videos, and as always, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever it is. I'm horrible at these kinds of outros, and I don't ever want to force anyone, so this is 100% voluntary. As always, I hope that you stay strong in your review. I will also indeed pray for all the people who are taking exams soon, and exams extend to qualifying exams, to departmental exams, or to all kinds of exams that people have been commenting and asking for prayers for. So stay strong, keep fighting, and I'm rooting for every single one of you. So I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, God bless always, and bye-bye.